like I said before, it's the three pillars that we like to talk about is education, empowerment, and pampering. So I'm going to go back to Cynthia, and she is going to talk about the education piece.
And before I start, if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat box on the side. If it is something that's relevant to what we're talking about at the moment, we'll address it right away. Otherwise, at the end, we will have a question and answer period to address hopefully all of your questions. We're going to be covering a lot of ground, so you can also feel free to reach out to us. We'll have our websites up at the end. And we're going to start with the first thing, which is education. And I don't know anyone who, once they are diagnosed, doesn't feel like they have to get a PhD in their type of cancer in a very short period of time, and make what in some cases are literally life and death decisions. I remember being completely overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start because I'd never had breast cancer in my family. I didn't know what ductal was. I didn't know what ER/PR was. And my husband would only allow me to Google for an hour a day because I would go down the rabbit hole of thinking I was going to die by the time I got off, because Google in some ways is a great tool. In other ways, it can be quite frightening. So I researched and researched to make my decision for my treatment, and then went back to researching once I realized what I was putting on my skin. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my skin being the largest organ. I learned about ingredients that we shouldn't be using. I learned about sustainability. And the one thing that I wanted to do, that we wanted to do as Warrior Revolution, is break down that mystery of how do you shop for skincare? How do you learn about ingredients? That's probably the number one question we get on our retreats is, where do I shop? How do I know what's good? How do I understand the backs of labels? So we've created a list, first of all, to start with what you don't want in your ingredients. And if Sarah, if you could put that up, and then I will run through those. The main thing is to realize is that the US does not regulate skincare. In Europe, there are 3,500 ingredients that are banned in skincare and perfume hair care. The US has 11, which is outrageous. They come in the forms of fragrance. Somebody can say lemon fragrance, but in that fragrance, you can have 1,000 different ingredients. Some are which are estrogenic, some are which are bad for the environment, some which are not good for our breathing. There's platelets, parabens, sulfates. Sulfates are really bad for your skin. As those, of us who have been through treatment, I did not have chemotherapy. I had radiation. My skin still felt like it was sucked of every ounce of moisture it had. And I know that those going through chemo suffer that even more so. Sulfates literally take away all the moisture from your skin. Aluminum, if there's one thing to start with, it's taking aluminum out of your skincare, i.e. your deodorants. That's something I'm really passionate about. You think about it, you shave your armpits. Most of us shave our armpits. You create fissures. You put on your aluminum that goes into the lymph glands that are closest to your breast, neck, and head. So there's a number of natural deodorants on the market that are amazing for you, that work well. You do go through a 2-week transition period because your body has found a new way to sweat. So it all goes, hey, new way out. And so you go through a period of a couple weeks of funk, but then it calms down. Formaldehyde is in a lot of products. And we all know what formaldehyde is. That's what they put in you when you are in the mortuary, and they want to literally make your organs not, what's that word? When your organs erode. So these are the ingredients that most companies have if they are not clean beauty in their products. And we don't want to scare you. We don't want to say you have to stop using these today. It's not about that. It's about educating yourself and making a decision on that. Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide. So what you want to look for, this is really, really simple. And this takes away from the fear. When you turn that bottle around on the back, you want to look at what is on the top. In fact, like here's what an ingredient deck looks like. So it's going to start at the top with the highest amount of what is in the product, and it goes down to the least. So you want to start at the top and see what is it. If it's a water-based product, it's going to say water or aqua or jojoba, and that's going to be the base of the product. Water products are great for people in treatment because it helps get moisture back into your system. You want to look for foods that you would eat, that you would spread on your bread, you know, sesame oil, olive oil, mango, coconut, jojoba. Those are products that both of our brands have in all of our products. And what is great about SaltyGirl Beauty is that it's a makeup brand that is based with these clean ingredients, but you don't compromise on color. You don't compromise on shades. They're one of the few brands that are from the get-go have been fully inclusive. They have a wide range of shades for everyone. In fact, at Living Beyond Breast Cancer last year, I don't think there was a single woman there who couldn't find a shade that was right for her. So you want to look at those things at the top: butters and oils, stuff that you would have in your kitchen cabinet. And then you want to go down to the bottom. On the bottom, you want to look for how things are scented. You want to look for essential oils, organic lavender, frankincense, lemon, lime, you know, rose oil, jojoba, or not jojoba, ylang ylang, those types of things. And they'll have a little asterisk by it to say organic, and then you know it's good. And then you can slowly educate yourself about things that are in the middle. There are some clean skincare that say alcohol. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're alcohol. It means that they're derived from coconut, and they're things that bind the product together. You have to have those things in there. But if you have a question about any of ingredients, there are two sites that we recommend to go to. The first one is called EWG, Environmental Working Group, ewg.org. And you can put in any ingredient you want, be it skincare, cosmetic, food, if you're at the store shopping for food and you don't know an ingredient. And they give everything a rating of 1 to, I think, 100. So you want to stay under the 5 and below. And if things have a rating of 3 or 4, you can take a look at why that is. Some may be perfectly safe, but it may be an allergen to some people. So just keep that app on your phone. That's great for individual ingredients in things. If you want to look at actual products, there is an app called Think Dirty app. The one caveat to say with that is they charge brands a fee to be on their site. So you won't find every brand, and just because a brand isn't on there does not mean it's a good brand. It just means that it's probably a smaller brand that just can't currently afford to be on there. But you can also check out ingredients there. So those are two really great resources. And then another thing that's great that's coming up is that green beauty, clean beauty can be found anywhere these days. You can find it. Target has a great beauty line. Ulta Beauty has both clean beauty and what do we call it? Clean beauty and regular beauty. It's not regular. There's a word for it that I can't, that I've lost. Being in my 50s, I find I lose words. There are specialty stores called Credo Beauty, Detox Beauty, Fulane in the Northeast. So there's, regardless of what you're looking for, regardless of your price point, there's a store for you. There's also plenty of things to find on Amazon. So when you're shopping, just look for natural seeds and butters. Look for the top of the list, the bottom of the list. Start educating yourself on what's in between with those apps, and you'll be fine. And if you have, a splurge, like a creme de la mer cream that you just love and it works for you, don't give it up. You don't have to. Use everything else and use that and enjoy it, and don't feel guilty. As you run out of products, that's a good time to switch over. You don't have to throw your whole, bathroom cabinet away and start over. Just transition out. There are so many great options, so many great skincare companies, so many great cosmetic companies, that there's something out there for everyone. And you always feel free to reach out to us, ask us questions, and check out our two companies. We use great products. We have great causes with us with the donations. SaltyGirl has Foundation for Love that they've started to benefit women in their in the Northeast and also throughout the US. So feel free to ask any questions if there's any that need to be answered right now. Otherwise, I will hand it over to Sarah, who'll be talking about empowerment.
And that would be Leah.
Oh, sorry, Leah. Sorry.
So thanks.
Oh my God.
Thanks. So empowerment. So before I get into, the whole empowerment, I just want to remind you the definition of empowerment, which is the process of becoming stronger and confident. And my goal really here is to remind you all how strong the soul and body really can be. And before some of you guys might be like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But I want to take you back to when you guys maybe were 6 years old, or whenever we learned about this in grade school, about the metamorphosis between a caterpillar and a butterfly. And I remember reading an article about the similarities about this process, and then someone who was going through cancer. So what I forgot, and maybe I didn't realize, is that in the cocoon, the caterpillars actually dissolve and become a liquid before they're changed into this beautiful butterfly. And as I go through the stages, I just want you guys kind of to reflect on how there's so many similarities probably in your journey through cancer. So this dissolved state is difficult, but they become this beautiful and different creature. There are many stages where the caterpillar sheds and in a way self-destructs to begin and complete the process of metamorphosis. But the caterpillar is born with these cells that eventually, when ready, turn into a butterfly, or they become into butterfly parts. And a butterfly remembers actually bits and pieces of when it is a caterpillar. So now I kind of just want to take it back and reflect on you guys and the stages, and the first stage of when you were diagnosed. So you're diagnosed, and that stage you become numb. You're like the butterfly and you dissolve in a way. You feel alone, but soon find that inner warrior, and you kick into survival mode. And then the treatment begins. So this is the next stage. Our body goes through hell and back, and we see the salts our body endures. You may not recognize yourself in the mirror. And I always love when Sarah talks about how her first day at Dana-Farber, maybe it wasn't her first day because she was into her treatments, but she was at Dana-Farber getting her treatment, and she looked around at all the other patients, and she really felt bad for these patients. And she actually told me, she's like, God, I feel so bad for these other people. Like, they look so sick. And in my mind, I was kind of like, oh gosh, Sarah, like, you are one of them. And I remember her going home and looking at herself in the mirror, and she said she was unrecognizable. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. You may not recognize yourself in that mirror. And I think that's when she realized, wow, I'm one of those people. I'm sick. And she saw the changes that started to happen. Her breasts, her hair, her weight, her skin, they all dramatically changed. And in a way, you forget that woman staring back at you. And in a way, you self-destruct. Like the butterfly, you start shedding. So then the next stage is that survival mode. And this stage looks different for the person sitting next to you. And I know it's virtual, but just imagine, I'm sure even, if you're in a big room of survivors, I think this stage is most personal because you don't know, I feel probably in this session, there's women stage 0 to stage 4. And whether you think it or not, you all have metamorphed into this beautiful butterfly at this point. You're stronger, you're determined, you're more strong-willed, and you have changed forever. You ladies will never go back to the cocoon, and some days you may be some days may be more scarier than others. And I do want to take a minute just to talk about the stage 4 survivors in this room, because honestly, it's you ladies who I've actually become the closest with as a nurse, because, there's no end of treatment. There's no ringing of the bell to come, to celebrate that, the completion. And there's, I feel like that you ladies definitely have the biggest wings of all the butterflies, because you continue to fly, and on the darkest days, you guys keep going. Ladies have a resilience to you, and I never want you to forget that. So do me a favor and remind yourself of what you were prior to cancer. What are the things that you loved about yourself? Because like the butterfly who metamorphed, you still remember bits and pieces of you, of who you were once prior. Remind yourself that you are one empowered woman because you indeed went through the process of becoming stronger and confident. So as cliche as it sounds, I really hope that maybe in the springtime, because I know we're up here in Maine and it's getting a little colder, but if you guys do see a butterfly flying around, I want you to just take a minute, and hopefully it'll remind you of Warrior Revolution and what Sarah, Cynthia, and I are trying to build, and really empower each and every one of you to become the best versions of yourself through such a traumatic diagnosis. And really remember on how much you have in common with that beautiful butterfly, and how your journeys are so similar, and how you really showed up at the end of becoming that resilient, beautiful you. And that goes to one of the best, I think, in probably fun topics is the whole pampering. And that's, I'm going to let Sarah take it away.
I'm doing the slides and talking at the same time. It's like chewing gum and walking. Is that a thing? I don't know. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about pampering now. So when we talk about Warrior Revolution, we talk about the education, the empowerment, and the pampering. And then pampering, you might be thinking kind of like, well, is that a spa day? What does pampering mean? For me, I think more about self-care is probably the word that better resonates with people, especially now. Not only a cancer diagnosis, but COVID is happening for everybody. And so finding ways that make us feel happy, make us feel important, really feed our emotional and physical well-being is so very, very important. And when Warrior Revolution breaks down our whole philosophy in three, I break down pampering in three different ways. I think of it from a mental or mind point of view. So how are we taking care of our mind, our spirit, our body, and then finding connection around us and how that feeds our souls. And so Cynthia was talking a lot about ingredients, and Leah was talking about empowerment. And so I'm going to be kind of bringing those two into how we talk about self-care and pampering. And so when we talk about mind, that's really about how we feed our soul and how we get through the day. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, like I said earlier, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I wanted to get control over things so badly that I almost didn't open myself up to allow any help. And so getting my mind right and figuring out how I was going to be able to get through the day was really important. And so I don't know if everyone else feels that way, but if that might be prayer for some people. I know my dad's very spiritual, and I would get prayers from him on the daily. For some people, that's meditation. And I think meditation can also be really intimidating. So this might be a little TMI for people, but I am the mom of a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. And I've really been, I don't know if people know Dr. Jen, but out of Philadelphia, but I've been working with her too. And she really talks about meditating, and it's really helping with your whole wellness. And it's, for me, I just can't seem to get my arms around it always, but I really try. And so sometimes that's breathing, but finding the time for it more than ever is also my biggest challenge. So sometimes when I have to go to the bathroom and I'm peeing and I shut the door, that's the only time of quiet I ever get, and I breathe. And so that's my time for meditation. So we have to grab it when we can. But so figuring out how that fits into your day is everyone's challenge, right? When I went through cancer too, I started a blog because that was a way I could write, and it was very cathartic for me to get out my feelings of thought. So that's another way to really help your spirit, help your mind. We have a friend, Stephanie, who's an art therapist, and she works with cancer survivors on creating art and really letting their feelings out that way. And so finding there's so many different creative outlets and ways to really silence yourself and reflect and feed your soul. So that's when we talk about mind and self-care, there's so many different ways that we can go in that direction and really feed that part of us. And the second thing is really your body. And so Leah kind of talked a little bit about my journey for the body. There's the spa thing that I think everyone thinks about, like running a bubble bath and that self-care. And as much as us at SaltyGirl, we have bath salts and scrubs and things like that. And I love starting my day off with like a nice breath of peppermint in my face with our scrubs. There's so many other ways to help our body really feel the best we can during a cancer diagnosis, especially. So sleep is the first thing, being able to really have the healthiest body that we can to fight what we need to fight. And also just getting through the day, like what we're dealing with a global pandemic right now, right? So eating right, getting outside and just enjoying some fresh air. Leah ran a marathon last weekend, and I'm still in complete awe of her doing a virtual marathon. I ran 2 miles this morning, and I was like, Leah ran 26 miles, 2 minutes faster than my 2 miles that I ran this morning. So it doesn't have to be a marathon is what I'm saying. It can just be walking around your block, getting outside, getting that fresh air. It's so important to our bodies. The physical exercise doesn't have to be these giant goals, but small goals are really important to have. And then when you bring it back to the beauty aspect side of it, because that's really what affected me the most during my cancer diagnosis was the way I was looking. And I think sometimes I feel embarrassed to say that, but as I meet other women going through cancer, I know that they feel this very similar way. I lost my hair. My whole life, everywhere I go, people have commented on my red hair. And then all of a sudden I wasn't a redhead anymore. And that really affected me in a deep way. And so and I just had a baby. So, all the things were happening. So trying to figure out who that person was looking back at me. Leah said when I made that comment about the other sick people, she obviously knew how I was feeling. And that next week, I was living in Boston at the time. That next week, she came down from Maine and brought this lipstick to me. And I remember putting it on with what I had, Jackie O sunglasses and this scarf. And I kind of took a deep breath. I'm always a crier, and I'll probably cry before I finish talking today. But I remember looking at myself and starting to cry because I was like, oh, okay, there she is. I see her again, and I can feel her again. So that was a big part of my journey, and that's really why we wanted to start a cosmetic line to help women easily and accessibly be able to find that lipstick, that shade of foundation, that blush that will help her feel alive and happy and healthy. So that's kind of connecting to self-care in your body. It's just putting on that lip gloss to be able to go out, or finding that moment to breathe for 5 seconds. Those little moments are really important. And then to be able to weave them into your day, it doesn't have to be an hour chunk of time that you have to set aside each day. And then the last piece is community. And so this part is really near and dear to my heart. And so I don't know about you, but having those women, those people, your spouse, your family in your life that you're able to depend on and connect with, and that love on you during your cancer treatment, your survivorship is so incredibly important during treatment, and it feeds your soul, you know? And normally we are all together at LBBC, and I know when we were talking about how we were gonna talk today, all those hugs that you get from people, and as you're having conversations, just grabbing their hand, I miss that the most today. See, I told you I would cry. I miss that the most today. And so we're just so happy that LBBC still has this virtual venue for us to be able to talk to you guys and build the connections in the chat room as we go along this weekend. So again, thank you guys. I have an example of what community really means to me when it comes to self-care. And so Leah and I have Foundation for Love. We've kind of pivoted our mission more recently, but we partnered up with New England Cancer Specialists here, and we're really helping with some of their holistic and health programs that they're doing. In the past, we've done more experiences for adults going through cancer. But so we just had a big fundraiser because they're rolling out a cold cap program, which Foundation for Love is going to be funding. And so we did a virtual 5K, and I was with my support group here in Southern Maine, and we were doing the virtual 5K together, walking. And I was walking with one of the women that I've become really good friends with, who was diagnosed with stage 4 in her 30s. And we were talking and just kind of catching up, and she looked at me and she had tears in her eyes, and I'm not sure, she seemed a little bit embarrassed by the emotion that she was showing, but she was like, I want you to know how much what Warrior Revolution specifically, we had an event last year, has done. I didn't know there were so many other stage 4 women that were young like me, that were young moms like me, that were going through what I was going through. They were like me, and I didn't know that there were other women like that. And being able to connect with that and find that they're best friends now, and I don't know what my cancer journey would have looked like without them. So that is what connection, that is everything to me when I hear things like that. So being able to find your people, your connection, people that get you through the day is so extremely important. And so that's what self-care is. Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, I wanted to say too, it's amazing too, the woman that Sarah's talking about, that all those group of women, they're my patients. And when they come in for their treatment, and this one girl, Sarah, I don't know if you mentioned, she is a stage 4 survivor, and she's always wearing her Warrior Revolution t-shirt for her treatments. And the girls will come down and they all sit together, and it's just amazing to see a community that was built outside of, the office. And just to touch upon a point too that Sarah was talking about, it's so nice to see as a nurse, but also as Sarah's little sister, is to see that.
Just throw in the little part.
Well, just to see your sister, I'm just so proud of how far Sarah's come, and I'm sure a bunch of you guys can relate to that. Sarah never wanted to be part of support groups in the beginning. My whole family had to sit her down pretty much and say, you've got to talk to other people other than us, because we can only fathom what you're feeling, but we don't know what you're feeling. And so give yourself time. I guess my point to this is give yourself time, wherever you are in your diagnosis. It can take a couple years to become part of those support groups. You guys just being here today is that first step. But it might take some time, and that's okay. I know Sarah, I think she was just super scared to hear about other people's stories, because herself was a young mom with stage 3 triple negative cancer, and that was really scary for her. So seeing her now 5 years out and really being able to project, her experiences with other people, but also to, get that support from other women. I know it's helped her. And I'm sure when it's time for all of you guys to do the same, it'll help you guys as well.
And on that, I just want to say something too, that, be kind to yourself during treatment and after treatment. What people don't tell you, and I think what families expect of you, is sometimes the year or two after treatment is the hardest. No matter what stage you are, and those who go through treatment and then are quote unquote cured, your family members expect you to be back to normal. They want life to be back to normal, and you're suffering PTSD. And nobody talks about that. And that's part of the reason. The first sisterhood I honestly had was with Leah and Sarah when I drove up from New York to their store in Maine, and we instantly, it's funny, the three of us feel like sisters, and I'm actually the oldest. And in our trio, I'm treated as the youngest. And I think it's just, our dynamic is so funny, but it's like, that's truly the first sisterhood I encountered, and wanted to grow on that, and just talking about what was missing, and talking about how scary that year or two after treatment, every ache and pain freaked me out. And you don't know who to talk to, and your family doesn't want to necessarily hear it anymore. It's not that they don't want to hear it, but you also don't want to share it. They want life to be back to quote unquote normal. And for those of you who are, just coming up, finishing treatment, that you do get back to a normal. It's not the same, but in some ways it's a better normal. It's a sisterhood that nobody wants to be a part of, but is the strongest sisterhood out there. And I don't know what I would do if I never, now I'm going to cry, if I never met Leah or Sarah. Like, that's what cancer gave me. And with Warrior Revolution, if you guys want to get on our site, on Instagram, on Facebook, next week we're doing fun stuff online now. We're doing a wine tasting. We just did a thing on CBD. Once we're up and running again, we'll have groups in person, but they're fun. It's about focusing on the fun, no matter what stage you are, and people supporting each other in their stages. And you can be who you are as a young mother with stage 4. You don't have to hide it. And you also don't have to cry. You can have fun and bond. And we have the best time at these events. And I can't wait to do the next one, but be sure and follow us so that you see what we're doing online. And we'll continue to do green beauty experiences with other things added in. And just thank you guys so much for being here. And that we hope that even online, you're finding connections with each other. And with that being said, we'll open it up to questions, to what you guys have. Just type it in the inbox, or if there's another way, Sharon, I don't know, or Janine, how you want to do it. I saw a couple questions come in. One that was really important that I wanted to touch on, because I get asked this question all the time, is about lavender. People think that lavender is an estrogenic. When I was researching to do my brand, I consulted with Dr. Robert Tisserand, who is the foremost expert in essential oils. He actually had a daughter who's battled stage 4 cancer. And he said, which then I pulled up, that there's a lot of wives' tales out there about essential oils, lavender being at the top. There was one study that was done with 8 boys to take the levels of estrogen within their bodies throughout a 2-year period. And for some reason, that specific study, because one boy grew breast tissue, which may or may not have anything to do with anything other than his genetics, suddenly lavender got a bad rap. All of the studies on lavender and estrogens actually show that it helps with cancer treatment. It's the most calming to the nervous system. It helps with inflammation. It helps with redness. It is a dream oil. If you take any essential oil and use it by itself on your skin, that's not good. If you use anything, just like anything that's natural, if you eat too much of, that's not good. So if you're bathing in a vat of lavender oil, that's not going to work. But add drops in, look for products with lavender. There's absolutely nothing wrong with lavender. I've talked to my doctors. I've talked to other doctors. So that unfortunately has just gotten a bad rap.
Cynthia, I have a follow-up to that question. So one person is asking about allergies and about if you have hay fever or you're allergic to certain things, should you avoid them completely in natural products, or can you take some of them, or how do you get information about that?
If you know that you're allergic to, I think I saw that, to rose, don't buy any products with rose. There's plenty of products out there. Just don't chance it. I was talking more about allergens. There's a couple of preservatives, which is another really important key. You do not want to buy a product that does not have preservatives. Any product that does not have preservatives will create mold and bacteria that is far worse than any preservative known to man or nature. Clean beauty companies, both SaltyGirl and Violets Blue, use naturally derived preservatives. Usually it's derived from some form of salt. That 100% you have to have in your products. And I can't stress that enough. That is so important. There is one preservative called phenoxyethanol that some people have an allergic reaction to. So that's the type of thing I was talking about. But if you have something that you take, like I'm allergic to acai, so I don't use any products with acai. If I take it, I immediately throw up. So I don't mess around with it, but always do a spot test if you're not sure, just on the side of your cheek or your arm.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. We have a number of questions about coloring your hair. Is it safe to do it? Are there specific natural products you would recommend? What kind of hair care do you recommend after treatment?
So if it's safe to do, sometimes we tell our patients you should wait 3 to 6 months post-treatment to start. That's obviously it's usually 6 months depending on if you've lost your hair or not. I think you got to really trust your salons and what they carry. I know, and it really also, it depends, we could be as clean and only, use certain ingredients. It depends where you are on that threshold, right? So I always like the brand Surface. I think that they do a pretty good job. And a lot of actually salons are using it now, which is great. And they do have hair dyes. There's a lot of, I don't know if Sarah, Cynthia, if you have any more things to say about that.
I mean, from a hair product, like Cynthia, did you mention like retailers and things like that? Okay. Like I always use Credo as my, if they're in Credo, and we're not in Credo yet, but so don't take that as the Bible, but if they're in Credo as a category, that's where I always go first to kind of look and see brands that, if I'm looking at hair care specifically, I'll go on Credo and see what brands they're carrying first, and then do my research from there to see how much I want to like kind of build from that. I also, if you Google natural hair, like, or organic hair stylists in your area, we have a couple great salons, one in Portland, and then my hairstylist that I go to uses really good hair color too. So there are things on the market, but hair color in general is hair color. And especially if you're using blonde, like, there's some things that you can't do without using things that are a little bit more harsher to your hair. So that's kind of my advice on how to go about that exploration for you.
And same kind of with the microblading and fake lashes. I know there's a lot about that as well. Microblading, we do tell our patients that, you can do it. It's not like a tattoo. It doesn't go super deep into your skin. But regarding the ink, I think it's just, I don't know what ink, that your salon is using. So I don't think I can really comment on that. And with the glue for the lashes, I know that they glue the lashes to your lash, and it's not glued to your skin. It's a synthetic glue, with that said. And again, and I hate to say this, but it's depending on what kind of salon you're using. I know, the salons that we go to, they're using, when they're doing the lashes and all that, they're using products that are made in the US. They're not getting things from other countries that we're not really sure what's in them. I know it's a lot of glue. There's a lot of formaldehyde. So it's just really just doing your research.
Yeah, ask the questions
Yeah.
to your stylists. They'll tell you, and if they don't seem like they know what they're talking about, it's time to find another stylist to work
Right.
with.
And
Sarah, just a quick follow-up. Could you explain what Credo is?
Yeah, so Credo Beauty, if you go to credobeauty.com, they're the largest green beauty company. They're like a Sephora, but for clean beauty.